What if I told you there was a show that wasn't just about college life, but one that inspired generations to pursue higher education? A show that didn't just reflect the culture, but literally helped educate.
Relax, relate, release. Relax, relate, release. Relax, relate, relax. Relax, relate, release. Yes.
Relax. We're talking about A Different World, the groundbreaking sitcom that not only brought HBCUs to the forefront of American television, it also led the conversation to the biggest topics facing black people in the 1990s. But did you know it almost wasn't the culture-shaping show it came to be? And that the firing of Lisa Bonet possibly helped turn the show around? Well, today when we run it back, we'll explore just how A Different World came to be a decade-defining show for 1990s Black America. Culture Crew! Welcome to Run It Back, the show where we revisit the black TV moments that didn't just entertain us, they shaped us. I'm Uzo Ometu, founder of Black Oak TV, your host and certified 90s black TV historian, here to guide you through the shows that made us who we are today. Let's run it back to 1987. The Cosby Show was the #1 show in the world.
Not just the city, the world!
And now here comes the spinoff, A Different World, set at a fictional HBCU, Hillman College, following the lives of cool young black students. But hold up! If I just stop right there, the show already had meaning. A black show about college kids at an HBCU, learning, getting educated. Automatically you've hooked in a slew of black people who either now were going to feel seen, or perhaps even more so, were going to be shown a better way. And you just know, the culture vultures had to be salivating for this one too.
So they came in, and instead of giving to the culture and nurturing and helping it grow so that everybody could make money together, they came into the community as an outsider.
At the start of A Different World, you had the convergence of the zeitgeist. If you were a fan of The Cosby Show, again, the #1 show of the land, you had to watch the spinoff. Its star was Lisa Bonet, whom the first season of A Different World would be based on, and after 3 years on The Cosby Show, she was one of the biggest celebrities in show business. The show would also feature Sinbad, a rising star comedian that had shined on Star Search and then impressed Cosby while warming up a studio audience. And this all was happening on NBC's Big Thursday night, where NBC owned the night with 3 of the top 10 shows for the previous 3 years. Which one of these is not like the other? But even if you came for the cool factor, you stayed on A Different World for its realness. A major reason this show resonated with the culture for its 6 seasons was because it was unafraid of tackling the real world issues from the sole perspective of black college students. As of 1987, that wasn't just something that had never been done on TV, it had never been done. Spike Lee hadn't even released School Days, and Rachel Dolezal wasn't pretending to be a black HBCU graduate yet. Over 27 million people watched the premiere episode of A Different World, as it introduced us to its cast of HBCU students. On the one hand, these are normal, everyday black people with different upbringings, all trying to find their place in the world. And on the other hand, it's the 1980s. These are black college kids in the South, and they're going through some stuff. Like, does your college roommate actually sleep with his eyes open, or is that a lie and he was staring at you while you were sleeping last night? Denise, played by Lisa Bonet, was the Huxtable kid that was free-spirited, aspirational, and a bit irresponsible. It's no wonder she ended up dropping out. More on that later. Dwayne Wayne, played by Kadeem Hardison, was the goofy math whiz from Brooklyn who had his head in the books and often in the clouds. Whitley Gilbert, played by Jasmine Guy, was the rich Southern belle with sass with a significant disconnection from the real world. Kimberly Reese, played by Charnel Brown, was the college kid with it all, brains, beauty, and charisma, but didn't have the financial stability of many of her classmates. Freddie Brooks, played by the Cree Summer, was Denise Huxtable on steroids with a desire to always fight the man, even if it meant sometimes not fighting for herself. We have to give a shout out to Jaleesa, played by Don Lewis, and Ron Johnson, played by Daryl M. Bell, was the best friend we all want, except for those many times when he wasn't.
Once you go black, you never go back.
Like any 1980s sitcom, A Different World had your typical setup. The main A story, the B story, and maybe a C plot line every now and then to make sure the producer's kid got a speaking role. Yes, Jennifer, I know your dad promised you a part in the show. I was there when he threatened to fire me over. And of course, the episodes were funny, with a multitude of recurring jokes, like Dwayne Wayne's corny pickup lines, Freddie's irrational exuberance, and Mr. Gaines' complaints about the students.
Loud and wrong as usual. Men aren't the only things that inspire jubilation. There's such thing as achievement, professional success.
Control top pantyhose.
But more so than just about any other sitcom of its time, each episode, after the first season anyway, always had a message, never failing to speak truth to power, whether it was bringing attention to apartheid in South Africa, making a PSA about HIV, or calling out sexual harassment.
Vincent states what you're doing is creating a hostile work environment. So, Sir Lancelot, I suggest you put your sword back in its sheath, or I'll report you to Human Resources so fast you won't remember what color your underwear is.
In making a statement as a black-led show, at that point in time in our culture, was both extremely resonant and extremely controversial. Like trying to explain to your uncle why you're not getting married anytime soon, even though he hasn't been married since the end of the Cold War. In the late 80s and early 90s, when it came to speaking up, for some black people, the belief was that we should just keep incrementally building on the gains we were making and not rock the boat. For those people, The Cosby Show, with its focus on portraying black excellence, was the exemplary show. But for others in the black community, now that we were finally being given the microphone, the camera, and with the rise of hip-hop, shitty royalties, the 1980s represented the best time to speak our minds. And that's where A Different World shifted away from The Cosby Show and its respectability politics and into the lane of challenging our institutions. Had A Different World been alone in that pursuit, I don't know if it would have worked out, at least not commercially. Thankfully, creators in film joined the party with projects like John Singleton's Boys in the Hood, Julie Dash's Daughters of the Dust, and Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. All of a sudden, Hollywood was getting used to the idea that outspoken black art did have an audience. Much like Hollywood was also getting used to the idea of Spike Lee selling everything from sneakers to soda. Because who can resist Mars Blackman? Oh wait, everybody. Why did they like Mars Blackman though? It's gotta be the glasses. America loves a black man and glasses. Or maybe they thought he was Jaleel White. I don't know. Well, I know it's hard, like painfully hard, to give Cosby credit for anything these days, and I recognize that he was too often a critic of young black artists. But in the end, Cosby did use his power at NBC to create a show unafraid to be the outspoken voice for black youth. The messages on A Different World were what made the show special, but more than anything, it was the show's highlighting of the black college environment that would be its most enduring contribution to the culture. Due to the historical patterns of the Great Migration, most black kids in the 80s were either living in the inner city or in the white suburbs. And in 1987, only 11% of black adults had completed a bachelor's degree. To put that in perspective, historically we have a higher percentage, 13 to be exact, of black people in the Army. As we've mentioned, A Different World is a spin-off of The Cosby Show, but this didn't start off like every other spin-off by simply trying to make a character out of a show and building a new show around them, like they did with this failed Good Time spin-off in 1981. What did I tell y'all about bad theme songs? Anyway, if you followed The Cosby Show, you know they planned this potential spin-off early on. In The Cosby Show's first season, episode 6, Cliff brings up Hillman College to his daughter Denise.
Colleges. What colleges are you interested in?
I don't know. Princeton, Brown, Howard, Talladega.
What about Hillman?
Hillman?
Hillman, ew, Dad, Hillman. Yes, Hillman. We are a Hillman family, dear. We go a ways back.
I know.
However, it took a while to figure out what the spin-off would focus on. In fact, some recall that A Different World wasn't even supposed to be centered around black people.
Bill came up with the idea of let's do a black college, and Lisa's roommate is a white girl. Let's do a reverse story, what it's like to be a white girl in a black surrounding.
Are you kidding me? The network and Bill Cosby were so intent on catering to white audiences that they actually considered using The Cosby Show's credibility with white America to make a show about a white girl attending an all-black school? Talk about pandering. Anyway, Meg Ryan said no to the idea. My hope is that after reading the script about a pretty white girl attending an HBCU, she had the wherewithal to say,
But that was the original concept, was really interesting, I thought.
No, it wasn't. But I digress. Once the producers came to their right minds and realized that a show spun off from Cosby, set at an HBCU, ought to star a black person, they decided it would be a new vehicle for Lisa Bonet. After all, she was the most recognizable young star on the #1 show, a role model for young black girls, and she was all over late night television.
And are you appear nude in the film?
Yeah?
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that all right, do you think, to be doing that?
I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
So in season 2 of The Cosby Show, they set up Lisa's transition to a different world by having her character, Denise Huxtable, announce she would be attending Hillman after graduating from high school. Now the new plot for A Different World would be to follow Denise's cool, bohemian, lighthearted character through college, along with a supporting cast of friends, and not to be excluded, her pretty white girl roommate, now played by Marissa Tomei. As I mentioned earlier, the show debuted amazingly. Its lead-in on September 24th, 1987 was The Cosby Show, with 27.9 million viewers. A Different World's first episode followed that with an average audience of 27.7 million viewers, losing just 200,000 viewers from the #1 show in America. Quite the accomplishment.
I know my parents love me, stand behind me, come what may.
That right there, that right there, that right there, that's a theme song. Now, people obviously had an affinity for Lisa Bonet, the HBCU setting, and the show's talented supporting cast. Thus, the show continued to do well in the ratings, keeping about 75% of the audience it had for its premiere by the end of season 1. However, the show was a little bit too Cosby Show-ish. Denise's problems were the everyday problems of a young student dealing with the transition to college. Ironically, in season 1, she could have just as well have been a white student attending a PWI, and she would have had all the same issues. There was no mention of the historical significance of HBCUs. There was no issues dealing with race. There were no step shows. There were no pledging. There was no activism. There was no nothing. Honestly, in season 1, Denise could have been attending Bayside High on Saved by the Bell, and we might not have known the difference. The show was just about Denise being a student, just like The Cosby Show was about a family, being a family. But that was okay for The Cosby Show because it was about a doctor and a lawyer's upper class family. But at an HBCU featuring young kids on their own, life needed to be a little more volatile. And while season 1's episodes were well written, well acted, and certainly funny, they lacked the depth and the reality of life at any college. Never mind at an HBCU, something needed to change. As I mentioned earlier, A Different World abandoned the idea of featuring a white girl.
But that was the original concept, was really interesting.
No, it wasn't. But season 1's focus on Denise living a ho-hum life at college wasn't sitting well with NBC executives or audiences. So the network and Bill Cosby reached out to Debbie Allen, who had just done some amazing work on the 1982 musical TV series Fame, which focused on a set of New York City high school students.
There were problems on the show Different World. Those of us that were watching it that knew historically black colleges could see it.
But there was another problem. Cosby was growing increasingly frustrated with Lisa Bonet. Her rising stardom and her use of that stardom was not meshing well with the image of the Denise Huxtable character Cosby had created. Just before A Different World had debuted, Bonet's new film, Angel Heart, premiered, and it showed Lisa's character having sex, practicing voodoo, and... No, Denise Huxtable, why would you cut that chicken's head off? Then, in 1988, Bonet did a topless photo shoot with Rolling Stone. Coupling this with rumors of Bonet often being late to set and eloping with Lenny Kravitz in Vegas, it was clear that her desire was to be seen as her own person, separate from that of the Cosby Show character for which she had become famous. That being said, the ensuing treatment Bonet would receive was totally out of line.
Because that first season, I'm telling you, it was whack. And I didn't like the way they were treating Lisa Bonet.
Yeah. No.
And they said, well, had so-and-so said anything to you? I said, you disrespect her in front of the audience, in front of me? You disrespecting me too.
But it wasn't until the lead up to season 2, when Bonet told Debbie Allen that she was pregnant, that the conflict between Cosby and Bonet came to a head. Allen, who had been given full authority to run the show as she wanted, thought that working Bonet's pregnancy into the storyline would be a great way to give the Denise character more gravitas and complement the transition the show was trying to make. But when Allen went to Cosby with the idea, well...
He said, what is it? Are you pregnant? And they were like, oh my God. And I said to him, I explained to him how I wanted to use it on the show. Because that would be a great thing to see a girl who's upper class kid having a baby, not married, because she didn't want to be married. Maybe about 2 or 3 weeks later, he says, you know what, Debbie? No. She's pregnant. Denise Huxtable is not pregnant. Lisa Bonet is pregnant, not Denise.
So after season 1, the show's star, Lisa Bonet, was fired, practically never to be seen on the show again. When you think about it, it's like crazy that she was fired for being pregnant. It was the 80s though, so maybe it was legal. Personally, I don't think Bonet got a fair shake. The show's early premise was underwhelming, and they didn't let her character grow at all. As big as A Different World would go on to be, one has to wonder how much bigger the show could have been had it not cut loose its biggest star, not to mention how Lisa Bonet's future might have been different. But with Lisa Bonet gone, A Different World had not only lost the star of a show, it also lost one of the biggest names in Hollywood. And with the direction of the show also in question, the outlook for season 2 was looking bleak. But Debbie Allen was going to save the day. With no star, a broken writer's room, and because Marissa Tomei was also fired, no pretty white actress to help ease the pain, A Different World was like a team that had lost the Super Bowl. They finished second in the ratings, and while they may not have been number 1 like The Cosby Show, the show had very high expectations, and they were hoping to get back to the championship game. But how do you do that when your star quarterback, Lisa Bonet, was just fired for being pregnant? Like, did they really fire this woman for being pregnant? Like, it can't be legal. And believe me, I see the irony in Cosby firing someone for behavior deemed unbecoming. But this appears to be what happened. Well, Debbie Allen was ready to step in as the new head coach. And like Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin, she was not going to blink in the face of adversity.
Don't blink. If you're a blinker, cut your eyelids off.
Allen was the perfect person to right the ship. She was a graduate of Howard University where she studied speech and theater. She was also a member of a sorority and a tremendous choreographer. She had the perfect blend of academia, experience, and artistry to lead a show about black college students. Those skills also happened to qualify her for the role of cruise ship entertainer, where oddly enough, there are more black people than you think. So Cosby gave Allen full control of the show, and I mean full control.
And he said, you know, I want you to go in there, dust your broom, and clean out anybody that you want to go. He gave me full authority to fire anyone, hire whoever I wanted, make the show relevant.
One of Allen's first major steps in changing the direction of the show was replacing his star. And like most football teams that lose their star quarterback, Allen decided that instead of relying on a singular star, the team would have to rely on a full team effort. Thus, she opted for an ensemble cast. She asked for more depth to be added to the characters of Dwayne Wayne and Whitley Gilbert. She then made Ron's character a part of the main cast. And season 2 is also when Freddie Brooks and Kimberly Reese were introduced to fans. Next, she would work on the writer's room. There, she made sure that while she didn't want to fire anybody, she needed to foster an environment for telling more impactful stories. That led to relying on old school writers from the past who had worked on shows like Give Me a Break, Good Times, and Roots. She also gave prominent roles to some new school writers that would go on to write for shows like In Living Color, The Fresh Prince, and Hanging with Mr. Cooper. This included notable names like Gina Prince Bythewood, Reggie Bythewood, and Yvette Lee Bowser, who would later create Living Single.
I mean, people send me all kinds of Hillman gear, God bless you, all the time. And I love it. I wear it with pride, you know, like I got my master's there. I got my PhD on Living Single.
Allen even asked the cast to share ideas they had for storylines. This helped resolve what she thought was a breakage between the cast and the crew. Cast members like Kadeem Hardison and Jasmine Guy would eventually end up with several writing credits on A Different World.
This was a time where there was this separation between the writers and the actors. If they said ooh instead of ah, they had to stop the cameras and do it again. I worked really hard to break down that barrier between the writers and the actors. Day one.
So you gave the cast a voice, Debbie?
I gave them a voice.
As if bringing culture to the cast, writers, and directors of the show wasn't enough, Debbie made sure everything and everyone was a little blacker and browner on set.
We just had so many incredible artists there, but what you also don't know is behind the scenes were all people of color. The creators, the head writers, the executive producers, wardrobe, craft service, you name it, it was just brown all around.
Another notable change to the show was Allen's infusion of HBCU tradition, something that was lacking amongst all of the foolishness going on in season 1, with characters babysitting eggs or arguing about which bed they were going to sleep in. While there were many ways in which Allen infused more HBCU tradition and character into the show, 3 things really stand out. First, she made sure to bring fraternities and sororities into the mix. Season 1 really only talked about the negative side of pledging in one lone episode, but throughout the remainder of the series, Greek life was intermixed into everything they did, with the characters of Ron, Whitley, and Kimberly deeply entrenched in their respective organizations.
Kimberly Race, once my friend, now my sister. Welcome to Alpha Delta Rho.
Am I really in, Whitley?
Really, Kimmy?
Second, Allen made sure to bring her choreography background into the show. On screen, she used her sense of choreography to influence how characters move throughout the scenes, to showcase sorority and fraternity step shows, and to sprinkle dance into many of the plot lines, whether it was at parties or just chilling in the student lounge.
911 emergency. Reconnect the community. Our struggle cannot be waged without African American unity. No more tears to be shed, and more marches to be led. No more pity to be wrought, not more mercy to be sought.
And third, Allen made sure to highly emphasize the academic part of Hillman, making it a central part of the show through the use of real HBCU professors and alumni to consult on scripts and storylines.
You don't like my teaching methods, and you think I should be replaced. Well, I don't like what's going on in the real world, and the only way we can deal with that is by what we do in this classroom. My father drives a bus in Brooklyn, not because he isn't intelligent, because he didn't have an opportunity to go to college. But you all do. You all do. But regardless of your degree, I am telling you, they will think you know less than you do because you're black. It's not enough for you to be equal. You have to be better. We have to be better. And it's my job to see that you and we are.
However, with all of that, the most impactful creative decision Allen made was making A Different World a show that spoke to all of the biggest issues facing the black community. She simply refused to shy away from the hard topics. Allen insisted on showing the beauty of black life while also spotlighting its harsh truths. Under her leadership, the show evolved from a lighthearted college comedy to a powerful voice for black liberation, consistently tackling issues of injustice head-on, despite the fact that outside forces made it hard for her to do so.
But we were like, you can't do this. And I said, when the students on a campus are quiet politically, the nation is dead. If we don't have an opinion, if they don't have a voice and something they have to say, they're dead.
In season 5, episode 14, The Cats in the Cradle, we watched as Ron and Dwayne face a racist encounter, a searing reminder of the dangers of racial profiling that black men live with every day.
Now why can't you people do the same? Hey, my grandfather built this country, man. He fought wars for it. And most places he went wouldn't let him sit down and get a cup of coffee. I can't even catch a cab in New York. You know, it doesn't matter how many degrees I get. All you people see is color. Your grandfather was an immigrant. You're American. My grandfather was born here, Duke. And you people still look at me as just another nigga.
In season 4, episode 23, If I Should Die Before I Wake, the show explores the AIDS epidemic, and Debbie caught hell for pioneering this subject on television.
He was incredibly open. He was also very supportive. A Different World, we did the first show about AIDS on television, the very first. They were all at my house the day that Magic Johnson came forward and revealed he was HIV positive. I never seen young men cry like that.
So, it was a proud day when she graduated from Hillman with a degree in English literature and high honors. That was the spring of 1992. By the following spring, Josie Webb had died of acquired immune deficiency syndrome, disease we all know as AIDS.
And then there's the famous scene from season 4, episode 12, where Freddie is insistent on telling a young black man enlisting in the army not to do so.
Canada. Oh, hey, I understand how you feel, but you know, this is not the time or the place, Freddie.
Well, when is the time, Kim? After he's gone? Somebody has got to talk to him.
And say what?
And ask him why he is going over there to risk his life. For what? Oil? Nationalism? We have a million problems in this country.
Go ahead and tell him, Freddie.
Thank you.
Gosh, I'm sure the network was so happy about this episode when the ad sales team was trying to get a piece of the Army's $100 million Be All You Can Be campaign. But Debbie ignored the suits, and by bringing these issues to light, she gave the show a unique voice in the cultural conversation, one that still echoes throughout today's black media. All that A Different World and Debbie Allen accomplished, and all the people the show reached, it's no surprise that the show's influence echoed well beyond its sixth and final season in 1993. First, the decision to fire Lisa Bonet, not replace her with another major star, and to go with an ensemble cast was more daring than it seems. It goes without saying that getting a black TV show on the air in the 80s wasn't necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do. Even The Cosby Show, packaged together with one of the biggest comedians on the planet at the time, got rejected several times before landing at NBC. Thus, when a black TV show did get picked up, it usually had to have someone of Cosby's ilk attached to it, as was the case with shows like Amen, Sanford, and Melvin. So A Different World's decision to forego having a star entering season 2 was not an easy one. Had the show's new ensemble cast of unknown characters not hit the mark, the show easily could have been canceled, and it could have meant that future projects featuring ensemble black cast wouldn't have a chance. But A Different World's cast ended up being spectacular and set the precedent for shows like The Wire, Girlfriends, and Insecure to launch with a largely unknown cast of actors leading the way. And because the casting was so on point, it also set the table to change the lives of what are now TV legends, including Jasmine Guy, Kadeem Hardison, Jada Pinkett, Sinbad, and Cree Summer, as Black America embraced all of them as if they were our own.
The public embraces us because we're like part of the family, as opposed to being hounded. It's more like grandmothers grabbing me and going, "Baby, you look so cute last night."
Second, we really have to marvel at how the show explored black love.
Well, tomorrow we can talk about Dizzy, Ella, and Sarah.
No, not that kind of love. This kind of love.
Well, looks like we're all done.
No, we're not.
Well, what's left?
Ron and Freddie's relationship was one of the biggest twists on the show and demonstrated how love sometimes requires people to broaden their perspectives. Colonel Taylor and Jaleesa's eventual marriage was the ultimate symbol of two people getting a second chance at finding true love. And most importantly, there was the amazing saga between Whitley Gilbert and Dwayne Wayne, two people from different ends of the spectrum. Her, a witty, sophisticated Southern belle, he, a nerdy, overeager kid from Brooklyn. And yet, they were made for each other.
Welcome to the future, Mr. Wayne.
That sounds promising. Enough of this!
And this actually was just how Debbie Allen envisioned it once she took over.
Whoever can make her laugh is who can get her, not the most handsome guy. You know, he was wearing the flip downs and he was kind of looked at as kind of goofy. But no, that boy is more intelligent. He can make her laugh. He can get her. And it ended up being the whole, match for the whole series.
For the better part of 6 seasons, we got to witness Whitley and Dwayne mature, become better, smarter, more capable adults, and ultimately they became more and more right for one another. Their on-screen chemistry was just so real, and probably helped by the fact that someone had a little something for somebody.
I can admit easily that I had a crush on Jasmine the minute I saw her.
Really? You can feel that.
Yeah.
I had a crush on Jasmine too.
Okay. Come on.
It was just so unique to see that level of depth and evolution explored between Whitney and Dwayne, two black people in love on TV, because we had never seen it done before. Modern shows like The Game and Insecure borrow from Whitley and Dwayne's romantic saga, building on the complexity and beauty of black love. Lastly, A Different World's depiction of life as a black college student was unparalleled, and the realness that Allen was able to bring to it was uncanny. The fashion, the competitions, academic rigor, and traditions of black college students were all aspects that hadn't been told on national TV. Oh, and did I mention the step shows? That depiction, and many more, of young black students paved the way for shows like Grownish, Dear White People, and even the reality show College Hill to delve into the world of being black and on campus. Culture Crew! It's time for the Remix Rewind, a quick rundown of the top 5 things you might not know about A Different World. Number 5. Did you know that Kadeem Hardison, Jasmine Guy, and Daryl Mbell actually worked together before A Different World on the set of Spike Lee's School Days, which was actually filmed before A Different World was taped, but A Different World premiered first. Number 4. The same person who came up with the Cosby Show theme songs also co-wrote the theme song to A Different World. Aretha Franklin, Phoebe Snow, and Boyz II Men will go on to alternate singing the theme song over the show's 6 seasons. Number 3. Debbie Allen was able to get all kinds of celebrities on the show, including Lena Horne, Jesse Jackson, Whoopi Goldberg, Loretta Devine, Tupac Shakur, Patti LaBelle, and Diane Carroll. Number 2. A Different World also featured actors who would become stars after their guest roles, including Halle Berry, Eric LaSalle, David Alan Grier, Jada Pinkett, and Tisha Campbell. And number 1. Did you know there were 7 lost episodes that never got aired? You used to be able to watch them all on Netflix. Hopefully they'll come back someday. That's the Remix Rewind. Next time you find yourself watching A Different World, try to see how many soon-to-be stars you can count in one viewing. When it comes to thinking about all the ways A Different World shaped black culture, it's hard to know where to begin. From shaping the image of black romance and pushing for community activism, to portraying black intellectualism and sparking conversations about police brutality, A Different World influenced black culture immensely. One of the ways that really stands out to me is the way the show shined a light on the African diaspora. The series features several episodes exploring our people's connection to Africa through fashion, music, cultural traditions, and even business.
This is bigger than that. Orange Glow Soda Company, the largest employer of Hillman students, has not, I repeat, not divested from South Africa.
Yes, they did 3 years ago.
They lied. They still own the bottling plant there, and they provide the syrup.
These conversations and portrayals help elevate the culture's connection to Africa, which during the 90s led to more of the motherland's influence finding its way into our music, literature, and fashion.
Hello, my sisters.
Whitley, you look great.
That's what I look. Haven't you ever seen fashions from the motherland before? Not on you. I intend to put the chic back into dashiki.
An often underlooked aspect of A Different World's influence on the culture was its impact on mental health awareness. The show often explored the stresses young people go through, like when Kimberly was struggling to balance working a job, studying for med school, and keeping up with her friends.
People, please stop gaping. She is not a possum on the highway. This was bound to happen. I kept trying to tell her to slow down. I tried my best, but she just wouldn't listen. Yes, Kim. Shut up.
Believe it or not, for the 80s, this was groundbreaking, especially within the black community, as it helped destigmatize, even if just a little, discussions around mental health. But of course, if there's only one real-world effect we can ascribe to this show, it was the increase in HBCU enrollment. Factually speaking, HBCU enrollment increased 26% between 1976 and 1994. And according to the National Center for Education Statistics, virtually all of the increase occurred between 1986 and 1994, almost exactly when A Different World was on the air. Now, I'd be remiss not to point out that overall black enrollment at all colleges increased 40% during that time period, particularly after the Higher Education Act amendments of 1986 boosted federal funding for HBCUs. So A Different World wasn't solely responsible for the increases in enrollment. Still, more and more black people were choosing HBCUs, and there's no doubt that A Different World's portrayal of black college life, the community, pride in education, and exploration of black identity helped lead a culture shift that reinforced the appeal of HBCUs.
Every day, someone will say, I went to an HBCU because I watched A Different World.
Right.
I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm an engineer because I watched A Different World, and it's the most rewarding part of the work we've done.
For me, despite growing up in a well-educated family, being born in the South, and my own parents attending historically black colleges themselves, the topic of HBCUs never really came up. And while I didn't end up attending an HBCU, my respect, admiration, and support for them has been long-lasting, and at least for me, it all began with A Different World. That's it for today's episode of Run It Back. If you love this trip down memory lane, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and share this with your friends. And hey, Culture Crew, what show or movie should we run back next? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, remember that the culture loves you, we stand by you, and that we know you're ready for a different world.